Hello, and welcome to another week of Summer Reading with Miss Barrett. I'm really excited you could join me today. This week we are going to look at Saving Winslow again. So the last time we read together from this book, we had just met Louis and his mom and his dad and Winslow, the donkey. And so let's look at some of the characters that we met the first week we were together. So here's our Saving Winslow characters. We met Winslow, who right away we didn't know his name. We just knew he was a donkey. But he is a mini donkey. He is 1 day old when they first meet him. And his mother is sick and cannot take care of him. So he came from Uncle Pete's farm. And so now Louis is wanting to take care of him. And so far in this book, up to the chapter we're in, Louis has been doing a great job taking care of Winslow. Winslow had even gotten sick, and Louis gave him shots and gave him the medicine he needed, and just did a really good job taking care of him. So we have Louis, who is a child, and he is concerned about the donkey. And he has trouble nurturing small animals in the very beginning of the story. So he's a little concerned about taking on Winslow, but he ends up doing a really nice job. And he does decide that he wants to take care of Winslow. And then we meet Louis's father. And Louis's father, we find out, is usually wasting time or money or doing dangerous things with Uncle Pete. And he is usually the one to dispose of dead animals for the family. And he does care about this donkey as well, about Winslow. We also meet Mother, who is skeptical of nurturing yet another animal. And she does come around. She does help when she needs to help with Winslow. So we're going to skip this one right for a minute. And we find out about Uncle Pete. He has owned a small farm on the outside of town. And we find out about Gus, who was Louis's older brother, who is not physically present in the story, but he is referred to a lot, and they talk about him a lot. He is in the Army, and he's gone for a year. So, and then we're going to skip Nora for a minute, and Mac. We also meet Mac, who is Louis's friend, and his father owns the feed store where they get the food for Winslow. So over the course of the chapters that we are missing today, we do meet Nora, who is Louis's friend at school. And she was unsure about getting close to Winslow because she didn't want to end up having Winslow pass away. But she's really, really attached to him now. And so she likes him, and she comes and hangs out with Louis and Winslow a lot. And then we also meet Mrs. Tooley, who is the neighbor of Louis. And she does not like Winslow because she says Winslow makes a lot of noise and keeps waking her baby. So she's not a fan. So at this point in our story, animal control has been called. And so they came out and told Louis and his parents that Winslow needs to be in a new home, one that is zoned for farm animals, in 7 days. So right now they're talking about bringing him back to Uncle Pete's farm so that he can live there with all the other farm animals that Uncle Pete has. So, so Nora and Louis are really sad about this because they are really attached to Winslow. And without Winslow at Louis's house, they won't be able to see him as often, and they are pretty sad about that. So we are going to pick up in chapter 40. If you have this with you, feel free to follow along. So chapter 40 is called, Are They Going to Make It? A long, wide dirt driveway led up to Uncle Pete's clapboard farmhouse. Louis steered Nora and Winslow around the side toward the red barn in the back. Winslow's ears perked up, swiveling this way and that, taking in the sounds of the cows and the pigs and the sheep and the chickens. A lively barn song of moos and oinks and baas and cackles. So I'm going to stop right there. Have you ever been to a farm? If you have been, Can you picture this in your mind about all these different animals and all these different sounds that are there? So if you can, go ahead and picture that as we're reading about the farm right now. So Winslow pranced and leaped, eager to investigate. Nora's hands were pressed to her cheeks. I don't know, she said. I don't know if I can do this. Uncle Pete waved to them from a tractor. Hey there, go on, wander around, check out the newborn lambs and calves. I'll be back soon. And he rumbled off on the tractor into an adjacent field. In a smaller pen, separated from the rest of the sheep, was a ewe and her twin lambs, so tiny and scrawny, with short, sparse white hair revealing pink skin beneath. So sparse means not very much, which is why they could see the skin beneath. One lamb was standing and stumbling about, and the other was curled against its mother. That looks so much like Winslow when you got him, Nora said. Was Winslow really that little and that scraggly? He was, remember? Winslow pressed his nose against the wire pen and made the softest sound, a little like the please he had first uttered on the day that Louis's father had brought him home. The ewe lifted her head, acknowledging Winslow, and answered him with a single ba before she bent her head to her newborn. The other newborn stumbled this way and that until it collapsed against its mother, joining its twin. Are they going to make it? Nora asked. I hope they're going to make it, but they seem so frail, don't they? So frail is maybe not so healthy. So that's how they all are at first, Louis said, surprising himself with his own confidence. He had seen dozens of newborn lambs in the past, and he had often felt as Nora did now. Will they make it? They seem so frail. But they had all made it, all except one or two, and Winslow had made it, and he, Louis, had made it. Chapter 41. Easy, boy, easy. Nora clapped her hands to her mouth each time she saw a new animal, as if she were trying to keep something inside from escaping. Louis watched her take it all in, the lambs, the tottering calf with its big head and curly fur, the pink squealing piglets. He had never seen Nora so animated. Winslow pushed his muzzle through fence openings, introducing himself. The newborn calf and Winslow stood nose to nose, smelling each other, until the calf's mother mooed loudly and shoved Winslow's nose back through the fence, scolding him for getting too close to her baby. The chickens fluttered and squawked and were not happy to see this new donkey creature near their shed, but they put on a showy display for Nora as she knelt near them. They strutted this way and that, clucking in quick bursts. Louis had the odd feeling that something was missing, but he didn't know what that might be. He glanced around, trying to identify the missing piece. They returned to the sheep pens and were watching the lambs still curled against their mother when the tractor returned to the barn and Uncle Pete called out to them. Winslow's ears swiveled this way and that. He brayed loudly. From around the side of the house, a scruffy brown dog ambled lazily in their direction. So he walked lazily. Easy, boy, easy, Uncle Pete said to Winslow. Just my lazy old scaredy cat watchdog who is slow in realizing that visitors have approached. Check that tail wagging. Wouldn't frighten off a toad. We heard that donkeys and dogs don't get along, Louis said. Well, often that's the case, but this here old thing doesn't know he is a dog, and he doesn't seem to know that Winslow is a donkey either. And then Louis knew what was missing. There had always been a donkey at the farm, a touchy, protective, and stubborn donkey. Uncle Pete had called it his LGD, and it was Gus who had said that LGD stood for Little Gray Donkey. That LGD was Winslow's mother. Chapter 42. Sorry. The next day began well enough, with the sun shining in the windows and Louis pulling on one of Gus's old jackets to wear to school, and his parents getting ready for work, and Winslow prancing around his pen and sniffing the air for spring scents. A day can begin so well. But Mrs. Tooley came outside to scold Louis and his parents and Winslow all of them, for all that terrible noise, day and night. But he doesn't usually bray at night, Louis tried, only occasionally. It's too much, I tell you, too much. I'm exhausted. I'm going crazy. Did that health person come? Did she tell you that animal can't stay here? Did the animal person come? Did he tell you the regulations? Louis's mother said, they came. They told us. His father said, we're sorry you've been disturbed. We're taking care of it. Louis did not say anything because his father had placed a cautioning hand on his shoulder. But what he was thinking was, your baby disturbs us. Your crying baby wakes me up. Shortly after Mrs. Tooley went back inside her house, Mac walked up the drive. He looked as if he were carrying a heavy weight on his back. What's the matter? Louis asked. Claudine. Oh, again? She's breaking my heart, Louis. Mac rubbed his hand down Winslow's neck and back. I wish Gus were here, he said. Louis and his parents silently nodded. I miss him, Mac said. Louis and his parents continued to nod in silent agreement. I mean, I know protecting people in our country is important, and I know it's selfish to wish someone else had gone instead, but I miss him. A sad and mournful and barely audible "ee-aw" was Winslow's response. Louis was unable to speak. It rained the rest of the day. So what do you think the symbolism of it raining the rest of the day was? Yeah, I think so too, because Louis was sad. He was missing Gus that day too. So chapter 43, something was wrong. Sorry, this keeps falling. That night, with the rain came the wind, powerful gusts howling through the trees. Twice Louis checked on Winslow to be sure he was secure and dry in his shelter. Thunder and lightning followed, sudden deep booms that shook the windows and sharp, bright, crackling light that lit up Louis's bedroom. Louis crawled into Gus's bed and hid under the covers until the storms ceased and all was silent. He hadn't slept long before he was awakened by the sound of Winslow braying. Oh no, Louis thought, not now, not so loud, not in the middle of the night. Mrs. Tooley's baby will wake up and she will be mad. The braying continued, louder. Oh, please, not now. The braying was loud and relentless, which means it was constant. He didn't stop. Louis sat up. Something was wrong. Louis's first thought as he reached the back door was that someone was taking Winslow and that Winslow was protesting. Louis's father was already in the kitchen. What a racket! What's going on? He asked. Not sure. Going to check. Louis grabbed a flashlight and headed outside. The yard and pen were muddy from the rains. Straw was blown against the wire fencing and buckets were overturned. Winslow was kicking his back legs against the fence, agitated and insistent. So agitated is nervous and insistent is he wanted attention. Easy, boy. What's the matter? Louis did not see or hear anyone. The gate was still latched. What is it? Tell me. As Louis opened the gate, Winslow lunged at him. He smelled of smoke. It seemed to be coming from the garage loft. Dad! Dad! The donkey pushed Louis away from the garage and into the yard, where he turned to the Tooley's house and raised his head and brayed long and loud, "Ee-aw, ee-anka-aw, ee-aw." It's okay, Winslow. Okay, shh, quiet now. But then he saw more smoke overhead. It was coming from the Tooley's house. Chapter 44. Please, please. As Winslow continued to bray, Louis banged on the Tooley's back door. Overhead, the smoke increased, spewing from a hole in the Tooley's roof, and from their attic window. And then Louis heard the baby wail and saw lights go on upstairs and then downstairs. And at last, Mrs. Tooley burst out the back door carrying the blanket-wrapped baby. Winslow insisted on nudging the blanket, murmuring in a small voice what sounded like, please, please. A flurry of sirens announced the arrival of fire trucks, and within minutes the house was surrounded by firemen and ladders and hoses and water spraying through the air. lit up by streetlights and a yellow glow as the water arced towards the Thule's roof and Louie's garage. Louie's parents and Mac and his family and dozens of other neighbors gathered nearby. The storm, the lightning, must have hit the roof. Lucky you got out. How did you? When did you? Nora came running up the street, clad in rumpled pajamas and a sweatshirt. I knew it, she shouted. I knew something was wrong. She put her forehead right up against Louie's. You okay? When he nodded, she turned immediately to Winslow, wrapping her arms around his neck. She said the same to him. You okay? Mrs. Thule was still clutching her baby tightly, and Winslow was still at her side, nudging her baby bundle. You, Mrs. Thule said to Winslow, you noisy thing, you saved us. So now that we know that Mrs. Thule and her baby are safe, which we're so thankful for, I want you to think about how you think this story might end. There really is only 3 chapters left. So I want you to think, how would you end this story? Now that you know about most of the characters, you've seen that Mrs. Thule doesn't like Winslow, and she called animal control, most likely her. And now Winslow has now saved them. And they're still talking about going to Uncle Pete's farm. And Gus is still writing letters. How would you end saving Winslow from here? So that's what I want you to do this week. I want you to think about and brainstorm some ideas of how you would finish the story. Then I want you to actually write it and write your ending for the story. So thanks for joining me this week, and I will see you again. Bye.